All right, welcome to the Reach Keep podcast. I'm your host, Mike Holmes here, and today we're talking about the importance of and how to train your children's workers, whether they are Sunday school teachers or junior church workers or really any other category of youth workers, and why it is so important, and we're going to help you to know exactly how to do that. In fact, the title of this is 5 Steps to Conducting a 3-Hour Training Event. We're going to give you some very exact steps on how to conduct a training event, probably a Saturday type of training event with your children's workers. And some of the things that you can do, we actually have for you, I'll give this to you in a little bit. We have an agenda for you, kind of a template to do the entire 3 hours and what all you'll need to do, and some of the things that you can train and kind of how to plug in some of your own stuff. So joining us today, though, or at least kind of part of what the way this is set up, is this came from an interview with one of our academy students, Pastor Mark Cannon from Hope Baptist in Bettendorf, Iowa. And he had called in on one of our monthly calls, and we were doing some coaching and kind of going through some things, and he had some questions, and I wanted to go through and kind of play some of him and then kind of answer some of those questions and kind of see how the whole coaching process worked. But we're going to kind of really help you kind of put this together. And if you are in the need of training your workers, and let me say something, we need to train our children's workers are really our front line. They are that first impression, and probably that main impression, because parents are so wanting to make sure their children are trained properly and had a good time in Sunday school, and what did you learn, and did you have fun. We want to make sure our children's workers really are on top of things and knowing what they're doing. And if you are a pastor, I know this is a part of your heart, that you are wanting to have a really sharp top to bottom, parking lot to pulpit, really the whole program together. And many times in our children's workers type areas, we don't do as much training as we should, and some of that is because it's hard to do that. We're going to give you a few solutions here and some of the steps. Some of it is because it just doesn't seem to be as much of a priority. I was on a phone call with a guy not too long ago and talking about his training and how he did it, and he worked with his teachers and all that, and he says, yeah, we do Sunday school training about once every 5 years. And we think training needs to happen at least a couple times a year. And in doing it on a Saturday, like with a 2 or 3 hour event, that's a good way to kind of plug it in and kind of make it happen. So we're going to show you exactly how we put all this together. So the topic is very, very important. So let's just go ahead and jump into, I'm going to play a little bit of Brother Mark here, and then we'll just kind of get into some answers throughout the podcast. So welcome aboard and good to have you. If this type of training is helpful for you, you like this type of thing, please take a moment to subscribe if you've not ever subscribed to our YouTube channel, or give us a thumbs up, or leave a comment of the type of training that you would like to do with your teachers, and we can kind of tell you, as we work with other churches, kind of some ways to maybe get that done. I'll answer every one of those comments. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump right in to our little Zoom interview with Mark and Mike here, and I'll play some of this, and then I'll jump back and be back with you here in a few moments.
But getting my teachers, training my teachers to, I want my teachers to be in a position where they build a relationship with the parents, so the parents feel safe coming to the teacher for advice. Because the teachers I have are great parents.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be able to pass that along, because that way it's not all coming from me. And so that's really something that I'd like to be able to teach my teachers how to do.
Mm-hmm.
How to go about that.
Okay. No, sounds like
if that's making it.
Sounds like you got good problems to have. You got kids in there, so nothing.
I do.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. All right, I want to jump right in quick here and kind of address sort of the elephant in the room kind of question, and then we'll get back to Mark's question and kind of answer that specifically. But one of the problems that many churches have is that they don't have hardly any or many, young people at all. And so this is a very, very important thing, this training stuff, because it sort of is if we build it, they will come. In other words, if you never train and don't have many, then you probably won't ever have many. But we have to take time, even if we have a few kids, to do this type of training so people see if they see that you're ready, that every Sunday you're expecting children, every Sunday you're expecting guests to come to your church, and that when they come, you are ready. I was at a church a while back, and they had a nursery, and it was down the basement, kind of back in the back corner. And if a parent came in the door with babies, someone would race down there real quick, open the door, turn the light on, turn the heat on, and then they would stall for a few minutes and eventually get the mom to go down there. And, the room was still kind of cold down there. You could tell that they weren't really ready. And it was just kind of one of those things. But if you have a program, or at least a training for a program, you're more likely to catch it if you're ready. I remember years ago, I lived in Denver, Colorado area, kind of in the state anyway, and big league, Major League Baseball was coming to town with the Colorado Rockies, and there was no team, but they promoted it and got everyone excited. And the opening game, was just a sellout crowd, and then of course, the Colorado Rockies, just really exploded in the area because we didn't have it. And they could have said, well, no one would come because we don't have it, but they said, we're going to have it. And then it worked out well. So just a little illustration there, but I want you to realize that you can have kids. And if you are one of those churches that has just a few, okay, or you just don't hardly have any at all, we do have special training in our academy that we go through, how to reach them when you don't have any or many. And we will walk you through this. If you become one of our academy students, we'll take you right through some of this stuff and help you personally in your church and your community figure out how to actually come up with children to come into your program. So anyway, let's get back to Mark and Mike on the question stuff here. Here we go.
The real challenge right now is just time management.
Yeah.
Is working two jobs. And the idea of going to fellowship meetings and things like that is just pretty much out of the question right now anyway.
Yeah.
Don't get to do much of that.
No, understand.
But, we're growing. And I think, we'll get there in maybe another year. But it's going to be a challenge making the time work.
Mm-hmm.
So those are really
Yeah, what you're looking to achieve then is try to get your parents a little bit more involved with their kids, and your teachers kind of more helping the parents, and just kind of a sort of a cohesive type of kind of building families, building the church through families.
Right.
Yeah.
I want the relationship with the Sunday school teacher to be more than a drop-off point on Sunday morning and a pickup point on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. This is excellent. These are great questions, and a lot of churches are in the same boat. Unfortunately, they're not asking the questions, so I'm glad you are. So I think a couple of things, one is you're talking about that podcast we did not too long ago with where you're, as a pastor, you're kind of saying, hey, we are here to help create a wholesome environment for your children. We're here to create role models. I think that being top down and you doing that is probably one of the first and most important steps, because your teachers are kind of seeing that. In other words, if you go, folks, we're creating a wholesome environment, the teachers are like, oh, we better make sure it's a wholesome environment, down the hall there, So I think having it from the top there is absolutely the best, Mark. And I think that you're kind of off to a good start there. With your teachers, how often are do you meet with them or do training, or would you do it after church or Sunday nights, or what would be your ideal time, and how often do you do that?
I don't have a set time, training meeting for our teachers. I don't have a set time for that. I talk to them individually, either before or after class, kind of see. I always check. Before I start on Sunday morning, I go to each class, touch base with them. How's it going? What have you got? What are you working on? Do you need anything? And I do that every Sunday morning. But what I wanted to do was get I wanted to set aside some times, like on a Saturday, where I'll bring all my teachers in for breakfast on a Saturday morning and teach them from 9 to noon or something, and train them on the mechanics of running a Sunday school class.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from security to having that relationship with the parents and I know I need to do that. Just making sure I cover all the right bases.
All right, we're at step one, and that is schedule it. Get it on the schedule. In other words, pick a time that's going to work. We're going to talk in details how to kind of manage some of the childcare stuff, but get it on the schedule because this is important. And this is not just something we kind of stick in here and there at our church. These are things that are part of our strategy. Our overall strategy at a Reach Keep kind of church is to aim towards the moms and dads of elementary aged children. And the reason that we do that is because elementary aged mom and dads, are the ones that are seeking for help. I mean, once kids are in high school, sometimes parents have kind of given up. And when they don't have any children, they're not quite as interested in church. But when they have little bodies there and they're forming their character and they're moving them through life and they're kind of struggling with that, those moms and dads are the ones that statistically are coming back to church and statistically are the ones that you're going to be able to reach out and to bring back in. So part of our strategy is to have a well-trained group of people. So it's not just the Sunday school teachers, but really the entire church knows that we are going to be reaching that type of young family. And so we want to make sure that you kind of get this really first step down is that you pick a time sometime in the next, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, let's just get right after it here, put it on the calendar and get that first training meeting in where you're going to go through some of this format that we're going to teach you. So step one, get it on the schedule.
Mm-hmm. And getting everybody there when you have a Sunday school teacher who has 3 kids in 3 different grade groups, that's when it gets to be a challenge because I don't have a passel of teenagers to work the nursery.
Yep.
While I'm teaching teachers, and that's something that I'm trying to put together.
Mm-hmm. All right, step number 2 is prioritize it. In other words, this is an important meeting. This is important training. You have to be there. Back to our baseball schedule. If they were starting the brand new Major League Baseball team, they would have the team. It'd be like spring training. You got to be there. First day of camp. It's a focused thing. Building a kind of a culture where your people understand they are part of a team and they are part of getting something done. And it's not just sort of a casual, well, we'll come if we want to type of thing. So you need to make sure that you prioritize it. Now, there are several tips that I would give you on this. Number 1, this is required training. And so you might have to schedule that around some people that are going to be missing and, people have vacations and all that kind of stuff. But make sure that you find out that everyone can be there, and that's a difficult thing if you got a lot of teachers. But if you're a small church, it's not going to be hard. But this is going to be a required meeting. We want everybody there, and so it's printed in the bulletin. It's, invitations are handed out, personally. Hey, I'll see you 2 weeks from Saturday at 9 o'clock. That type of thing. So just make sure it is required. The second thing I wrote in my notes here is the idea that it is very focused. In other words, we're going to be training in these specific areas. So let people know that it's just not like you're going to be preaching another message to the teachers to help them be all right with God, that kind of thing. But there's going to be focused things. We're going to talk about skills. We're going to talk about the roster. We're going to talk about schedules. We're going to talk about some of the upcoming things in the summer that we want to do. We're going to be having a meal, and it's going to be some very focused type of training, and let them know you've got, some special speakers kind of coming in by video, and you're going to be doing some training online. You're going to have it in a special place. I'd put it in a smaller room, where you can be alone. And the last thing I wrote down here is that there's no distractions, and that you make sure that you can get this thing done and you get this 3 hours really blocked off. And so nothing else is going on at the church at that time. And this is what Mark has mentioned, and we'll cover this in just a second. It's the idea of how do you do some of this when a lot of your teachers have kids, and what are we going to do with some of them? So here's the things again. Make sure that it is required. Make sure that you let people know it is focused. In other words, you can set out an agenda ahead of time, and we're going to give you an agenda here at the end that you can have to use and kind of change it around, make it your own, and then let folks know that this is a non-distraction type of thing. So don't have any babies along, don't have any kids along, whatever. Get the proper babysitters. We want this thing to be just really, really focused. And when you do that, you create a priority of this, and it creates some of that excitement, and it creates some of that buzz amongst the rest of the people that you guys have a children's ministry. And then, surprise, surprise, people start to invite folks. They start to bring people in. Other people hear about it, but you start to build. So this is one of the focuses here. Is step number 2 is just prioritize it. Now, what you're saying is do something on a Saturday. We call it spring training. Lots of times what we do. So, pick a Saturday, sometime between now and Easter, or maybe after Easter or something, and say, we're going to get together for some training. And, if you can keep it short, then the babysitting issue is a little bit easier. If you have the kids, they can play outside or they can be with somebody else. I just was on the phone with a church in New Hampshire that I'm doing some training for, and we're doing a great big training event, kind of like what we did at your church at one time. And he's like, how do if I'm doing children's worker training, how do I have all the children's workers in the training if I need to have somebody watching the kids while we're doing the training? And what we have found, and this might work for you as well. There's several different solutions. You could get, depends on the age of the kids. You get a teenager or maybe an older couple that wouldn't necessarily be in the training, and they would sort of oversee things. But what he's doing and what we've done here at our church is we have had a couple people come from another church, like a sister church in the area. And we have in our community, we have a Bible church that's really pretty solid, and we hang out with them. I mean, we talk and get along and all that. And we just ask their folks, it's like, hey, could you bring a couple of your folks over on Saturday morning? And here's the rooms you'd be in. And you guys would run a 2-hour program for all our kids. And we'll provide food and, snacks and whatever you need for, whatever you need. But just, you can train our kids. You can have some playtime with them, take them out for a little bit, because it's 2 hours long. You can teach a missionary story. You could do something that maybe you're familiar with, or here's a missionary story we'd love you to teach. And we'll give you, $100 or whatever to do it. And we'll put that towards your missionaries. And that's kind of what's worked well. They're like, hey, we can make some money for our missions team going to Papua New Guinea or whatever, and we'll donate. Our church will give it to your church, and so some of your people come over and do it. So that makes it kind of special because then the parents are completely free to be in your teaching, and the kids are just down the hall and they're being taught by somebody else. And of course you can check in or have an adult present there if you need somebody to be in there, but that works pretty good. Kind of a good way to sort of do that, or to get like someone else, like a teenager or another person that's not involved, to kind of watch them. But I do think a couple hours on a Saturday is really good. All right, let's jump to tip number 3, and this is the word agenda. So keeping with our little format here, agenda it. That's kind of hard to say, but I think you get the idea that there needs to be an agenda, and this needs to be created way ahead of time, and your people need to know that this is what the agenda is. So these are the things that we're going to be covering. Now, I'm going to get back to Mark and Mike here in just a little bit and kind of talk about kind of how we do some of those things and how he could do some of those things at his church. So that'll be helpful for you. But let me give you the 5 big categories here that need to be on your agenda. And this also, again, will be included in the little kind of cheat sheet that we'll make available for you. So there are 5 things, and you can really kind of put these in any type of order. But the first one is inspiration. There needs to be during that some type of like, hey, this is why we're here. Man, we're going to see kids grow in the Lord. We're going to see this happen. If you're teaching all your ministry teams, just kind of go through each one. It's like, hey, we're going to have great, secure services. It's going to be great. No one's going to be afraid. Hey, we're going to have great sound and video. And if you're talking to your audio visual people, and if, of course, your Sunday school, it'd be like, boy, isn't it going to be great when these kids grow up and serve the Lord? And what would it be like if, wow, and, kind of give them some inspiration. And this is usually a shorter time and very concise, but it's just like, let them know that what they're doing is really, really super important. So you want to have a time of inspiration. You want to have a time of skills training. Now, skills would vary for every ministry team, and if it's kindergarten, Sunday school class versus teens or whatever, there's a lot of different skills there, and we'll have some on the sheet that you can see. But this is where you would take some time to really sharpen up and really, kind of help them know some of the things that they need to be doing. And this can be a longer time, and you can actually break out into groups for some of the skill training. It's a good suggestion. So those are the first 2. The next one is what I call duty, and this is the things that are the duties. In other words, if you are in charge of a bunch of children, there are some responsibility things that we need to make sure we cover. And all of this would cover, emergency procedures and medical type of things and checking kids in and out, roster type of things, make sure somebody's here on time and they're teaching this week and they're teaching that week, but they're gone on vacation this week, so someone needs to fill in for them. So you'll need to cover all the duty type of things that are in there. And just, the idea of making sure you think that through. And when you do the duty stuff, it has a way of kind of building a team. In other words, hey, I'm not just like sort of filling in here if I happen to make it to church that Sunday. It's like I have a responsibility, and you can really focus, especially with children, on the responsibility that we have towards the parents. Some of those duties would be, corresponding with your children, corresponding with the parents, getting out and making visits, all of those things. So kind of put that into the duty thing. So inspiration, skills, and duty. Number 4 one here is the word improvement. And this would cover evaluation, where you would kind of say, all right, let's talk about how this last big program went and, what went right, what went wrong, what can we do better, what was confusing, those type of things. But also like where you want to go. This is a little bit more of the vision, not just like the inspiration American type of vision, but like we really want to improve in this area. We want to be better at integrating, the parents into classrooms and, different things, and really talking about how you want to do. And this will take leadership. And we suggest that the improvement stuff is done many times by the senior Sunday school person, if they're a superintendent that's in charge there, or the pastor that's there. And many times after this, you can break out and kind of talk about how we can make some of these improvements happen. And then the last thing in the kind of the five, general categories is just what we call housekeeping. And this is making sure that you're taking care of the little details that are there. And details really matter. And we want to make sure that people know the roster situations and who's going to be doing the bulletin board, this season, and who's going to, be doing the decoration, and who's in charge of, this Christmas party for the kids, or who's, getting the decorations and outfits for this. And you would take care of things that are kind of much more specific. And if you're not careful, housekeeping can kind of really get into minutia and kind of bore a bunch of other people. So housekeeping is often something, again, where you break up. And I will give you one little bonus with your training if you can work this in. It works well with housekeeping, and it works well with some of the vision things too, where you would actually take a break. And of course, if you're doing a 3-hour meeting on a Saturday, you're going to want to have a break anyway. And you would send your teachers to their respective areas, the AV people, if you have audiovisual security people. And we've often done this. It's like, all right, all this, people that are in charge of the auditorium and the audiovisual, and you guys meet there, all the ushers and security people, you meet over here. Sunday school teachers, you meet in your classrooms. And I want you to talk about these three things. What does a great Sunday look like? Okay. And then another question, what does a really lousy Sunday look like? What, when something really goes bad, what goes bad? And that's a great discussion. And then what can we do really to improve and kind of do some of the vision things that we've learned? And you send these people away for 15, 20 minutes. And then you as a senior leader, if you're the senior pastor or senior Sunday school administrator type person, you can kind of go around to each of these teams and kind of like, well, hey, what have you guys been learning? And oftentimes they will have very specific questions, very detailed type of things that you can cover. And of course, some you may not have time to cover, but there are a lot of those housekeeping things would be there. That is also the place where you as the leader would be able to say, is there something I can do as the leader to help this team, this ministry team, whichever, help you flourish a little bit better? Is there some budget items? Are there some announcements I can make? Is there some emphasis that I could put? And you'll often get some great suggestions there. And, you just kind of have to sort of navigate that. Lots of times people need just very simple things. They don't necessarily need gigantic things. They just need simple things. And their copier machine is broken, or we don't have enough markers, and we're not sure if we can spend money or not on this or that. And hopefully you can answer some of that, but those are kind of housekeeping things, and they often work really good if you break out into special little things. So those are kind of the 5 agenda things. So let's just jump back to Mark and Mike. I'll go through a few details on how to make some of this happen. The content, what makes it work pretty good is, and you can do this with our stuff, or if you're using Answers in Genesis, they have some training stuff. But what we often do is we will find like a clip of a YouTube video, kind of like what we do, and we will just play it, and we'll stop it partway through and go, oh, all right, that's a good idea. Let's talk about that for a few minutes. And we talk about, how do we make a wholesome environment, or how can we promote this better, that we're doing a wholesome environment, for the people that are here. So teachers, let's listen to, Mr. Mike here for 10 minutes or whatever. And then you just stop it partway through and have some discussion, and then go a little bit longer, have some discussion, go a bit longer, have some discussion. And you can do, 45 minutes to an hour of really good training and have really good discussion at the same time right there. Then what you would want to do is also make sure that you have, shift the training, say, oh, let's take a little break. Now we're going to talk about our classrooms and how, it works here. And you're going to get the, 3-year-olds through 5-year-olds, and you're going to get the 6 through, third grade, or, however the break, but you would do sort of the housekeeping events along with that, because you really need, when you're training, you need to train philosophy and, ideas. You got to give them some of that, but you also have to spend some time with kind of the mechanics of, what I would call the housekeeping kind of things, where you're going to say, all right, we're going to age grade this a little different. We're going to make this classroom over here. We're going to, do this here. And then in those mechanics, Brother Mark, what I would do is have an ideal schedule. So it's like your Sunday schools from, and I'll just pick a time from, 10 to 10:45, whatever. You're going to want to have 15 minutes of this and 10 minutes of that and 4 minutes of that and a bathroom break here. And, kind of give them sort of the format there of what you would like, kind of show them the best kind of format. So you're teaching some philosophy. You're also teaching the mechanics that your particular church needs. A couple things that
Yeah.
you can add in there that helps them feel like they're part of a team that's really important is make sure that you go through stuff like some of the safety requirements. It's kind of like, all right, and I just want to make sure everybody knows, here's where the first aid kit is. Here's our medical person of the day. Who, if we had a problem, remember, teachers, you're responsible for those children. Here's what here's how we take care of them. If someone got sick, here's how we handle that. If we had a fire drill, here's how we handle that. When you do that kind of training, it helps people understand their responsibility a little bit. All right, I want to jump in here just kind of right in the middle, and I'll get back to some of these tips and practical teaching here in just a second with the Mark and Mike video. I want to talk about, and you probably saw it, here's tip number 4, or step number 4 really, and that is team it, okay? Teams, make teams, create ministry teams. Now, a lot of the pushback we get from this right off the bat is that we just don't have any people to have teams, or we don't even, have any concept like that at all. And I'm not talking about committees and official assignments and that kind of stuff that some churches have, but just the idea of 2 or 3 people, 4 or 5 people on thing, that they are working together and they are a team, and they are going to have responsibility and move forward that. And we've got a great video on how to get started with ministry teams, and you can check this out. I'll put this in the show notes here below, but go and listen to this particular thing, because it'll give you about 15 minutes of just real practical way on how to start a team when you just don't have any, or you just have a couple people doing things. And what often happens at churches is, especially smaller churches, is you have people doing tasks, and they do this task and that task and that task, and they're just kind of doing tasks at the same time. And you want to start to work away from that, because you really want a good, strong volunteer culture if you're going to grow a church. And for a couple reasons. One is because you can't do everything. There's so many churches where 95% of the work is done by 5% of the people, and you might be one of that 5% doing all that work, and that's not a good thing. The other reason that you want this good volunteer culture is because volunteerism is really a part of discipleship. In other words, learning to serve within your local church is a piece of becoming a good disciple and follower of Christ. There are many times when Christ sent his guys out to go do this or go do that, and do different things, and we want to be able to do that. So teams are a kind of a functional, practical way to make that happen. So part of what we're doing here in this, the whole thing of training people and doing this, is creating, and it's a sort of a little piece of what's happening here. When you get done with your Saturday training thing and you had your 3 hours, hopefully at the far end of that, you're going to have a group of people that are kind of a little bit more cohesive, a little bit more organized, and a little bit more ready to go and function as a team. And there'll be times when you as the pastor can then assign something to that team or work with that particular team and kind of help that particular group kind of get going. So you want to create ministry teams. They will save your bacon. They will help you have a wonderful, flourishing church when you have a good set of teams. So watch this video here. Here's the picture of it. But make sure you go and catch that. But let's get back to some of the practical stuff right now, and then we'll get to step number 5 here in just a little bit. And then one thing that I would end with or put in there somewhere, and I did this just the other night with one of our groups. It's like, we're working on our budgets. Let me ask you, are there some financial needs that your class would have? In other words, do you need markers? Do I need to go buy you some markers? Do you need erasers? Do you need a new whiteboard? Do you need some Bibles that you're going to hand out as awards for kids? And when you do that, it makes them start to think sort of budget stuff. And of course, you have to figure out what you're going to budget for that and some of that. But it really makes them part of a team. In other words, they realize, hey, I am a piece of this thing, and I'm not just like a babysitter. I mean, babysitter thrown in with the kids for 45 minutes. I'm really a team member. I'm in charge of these kids physically and to make sure that they're healthy. And I'm in charge of this room. And hey, we need some new posters or, I asked one of my guys last Sunday, because we're doing some budget work. I asked one of the security guys, I said, I need to know what you would need to spend money on in 2024. Okay. We got, kind of budget stuff we're working on. What are you looking at for the next year to spend money on? And he just like, oh, I didn't even think about that. And I said, well, what do you think you need? And all of a sudden he just like, oh, hey, we've got to recertify our CPR people. And so we got to send a couple of them to a class to learn how to do the medical stuff. And I said, well, hey, work on some prices, get me a price. But it made him just really think and know that he was a team member, and they operate better as a team when they are a team. When you're given, it's like, hey, you're a piece of the big action here. So here's some training that we're going to do. So we're going to watch a video or listen to an audio. We're going to stop it and discuss for a little bit. How could we implement what he just said in our church? How would that work? Let's listen a little bit more. Let's listen a little bit more, discuss, go through your housekeeping. Here's how we're going to break things down. Here's some of our problems. We're not dismissing all at the same time. There can be a myriad of different problems in a church. That's usually one of the things. It's like, how do we just all dismiss at the same time? Is the little kids are taking an offering? Is the offering being secured? What's the procedures for that? That kind of stuff. And then, all the, like say, the other housekeeping things that have to do with, security and money and safety and, that kind of stuff. So budget stuff. So you can put all that stuff in there. In the midst of all that, some of that housekeeping stuff would be, hey, I want to make sure that we're all teaching a Bible verse every Sunday. We want to make sure we teach a verse because parents need to know the Bible verse. So I would like for you not only to teach the kids the verse, but I'd like for you to print the verse on a card somehow or on some little piece of paper. And let's make sure that every parent, and you go to the parent and hand them that verse and say, this is the verse we're teaching your child. And what we have found with this is that instead of giving it to the kid and he stuffs it in his pocket and the parent never sees it, that the teacher goes to the parent and says, here's the verse. Let me know how it goes, because we're going to try to work on this verse. So you sort of have them, the parents and the teacher, connecting over a particular topic. All right. Hey, here's just a little bonus I kind of dropped in here when I was talking to Mark about smartphones and the way Sunday school teachers are using smartphones. I will include in the notes below a couple links on how smart pastors are using smartphones in their church. And there's just a lot of really practical little things here that you can use. So I'll put a couple links in here for you. But let me just jump right back in here and see how teachers can be using their smartphones. It works really, really great. Another really neat way to connect with parents, and we do this often, it's by your teachers using their little smartphone. I mean, everybody's got one now with a camera on it. So basically, in the classroom, they would take, when you're doing like a arts and craft time is usually when it works the best. They would pull out their phone and they would take a picture of the kid coloring or gluing popsicle sticks together, or maybe the teacher dressed the person up like Moses, for a few minutes, just put a towel on their head, something like that. And you have them take a picture with their phone. And then when Sunday school is over, the teacher texts that picture to the parent right there, and then go to them and say, hey, I don't know if you saw it, but I just sent you a picture of your child. They were dressed up as Moses. We had to do this little story, and I put a little thing on their head, and they look so cute. I knew you would want a picture of it. When people take pictures together, there's a bonding that happens with that we have found. So when we do our youth activities and our day camps and Sunday schools and all sorts of stuff, we take lots of pictures of the kid, and we're not publishing the picture. We're just taking the picture and giving it to the parent, and we send it to them. And we have parents that, I mean, some of our teachers will text it to them, right there during Sunday school, and when the class is over, they walk up to the, I heard you were Moses. It's like, how do you know that? And they get to show, hey, look at the picture here. I got a picture of you, it just really kind of creates some bonding there. So that's just a couple tips that you might be able to do, but I would definitely plan a training time. A couple hours on a Saturday works good. It'd be a little longer if you need more time, but 2 hours, 2.5 hours if you get right at it. Sometimes you can tie it to a meal. And so that you'd go like from 10 to 12 and then have sandwiches or something afterwards, because during the meal, there can be some great discussion time. So that's where, as a senior pastor, you kind of go, hey, so what can I do to help your class be better? Is there things I could announce? Are there emphasis I could do? Could we coordinate the verses? That type of thing. So that's a really, good way. And one of the things that I found, I learned this from my teachers, and I do it a lot now. It's like I would let the parents know what the kids are being taught. So if you got a curriculum and all the kids are learning something on respect, you just, before you preach, you say, hey, just want to let you know, in junior church, here's what your kids are getting. Or in Sunday school, here's what your kids are getting, this lesson on respect. And let's make sure that you teach it at home and we teach it here, and let's work together on this. So that's a good way to kind of get some of that stuff coordinated. All righty. Did you catch number 5 there? That was coordinate it. The idea of coordinating everything together. Now, I understand that this is training for Sunday school teachers or maybe training for other ministry teams. There are different categories, but one thing that is essential is that all of our different categories are coordinated singularly. Think about like the NFL example. You'd have like an offensive line team or coordination. You'd have special teams. You have the quarterbacks and running backs and defensive guys and all that. They're all like kind of do very specialized things, but they have to be all coordinated and on the same page. And so this is the idea of you as the top down being able, as I mentioned, kind of say some things here and kind of be able to support your Sunday school teachers in this case for this training. It is not just a program. It's not just a curriculum. It is the lifeblood of your church. It is really what we are all about, is reaching people, and more specifically, reaching new young families. So it is a strategy, and with us, it is a actual strategy. And many churches kind of get caught up in, shall we say, we have Sundays come every week, Wednesdays come every week, we very much habit forming, very much routine, which can kind of turn to ritual, which means you can kind of lose some of the values because they kind of drift away. And we want to make sure, and we want you to make sure that your people are understanding that they are part of this bigger picture. And just the same way that the pastor is empowered by God, and when he stands up behind the pulpit to preach the word, we always bless him as he preaches the word and empower him with the Holy Ghost. Well, the Holy Ghost can empower those Sunday school teachers over in that room and the nursery people over in that room. I mean, the Holy Spirit can empower and does empower all of his individuals. And if a person is surrendered, they've given their skills, their talents, their Saturdays, their time, whatever, to minister to young people, then we have got just a tremendous amount of spiritual power behind us as we minister, and your people need to know that. They need to be told that, and that might be part of your inspirational talk that you have at the beginning there. In my notes here, I wrote down this question, and it is: do you have a strategy? In other words, do you really have something, or have you gravitated to doing a lot of tasks, a lot of routines, a lot of, and we wouldn't call it our church a ritual. Okay. Routines are good, habits, good. Some of those are good words, but they can kind of lose some of their power. And this is a chance to make sure your people are empowered and ready and back to what they're doing. So, overall, I mean, our strategy is, and the big strategy, and I'm sure your church has this too, is, do all to the glory of God. We're going to glorify God, and this is the big thing. But when it comes down to nuts and bolts, like what we're going to meet about, what we're going to plan, what are we going to budget, what are we going to put on the calendar, what are we going to announce, those are more strategic type of things. And this is where children's ministry and the kind of the adult side of it, or the pastoral leadership side of it, need to be coordinated, and you need to be 100% behind what's going on with your children's ministry. And it's not just like, oh yeah, they've got a thing going on over there, parents, go if you want to. No, it's like, man, this is what we are all about. So powerful things happen when our core values are really nailed down and we know what we are doing. So, all right, we're going to get back to our main thing here. We've got, we'll wrap it up in just a minute. We've got a book reference we're going to give you here, a very important book on this whole concept we're talking about. I'll give you a reference for that. And then we're going to get you an address where you can get your own little sample agenda. So let's just jump back to Mike and Mark. If you did that a couple times a year, once in the spring, once in the fall, that'd be kind of a good, good way to get that started anyway. And you can do longer times if you need. So I don't know. Is that helpful? Does that give you an idea there?
Well, great ideas. And I like the idea about the pictures and the phone. That's a great idea. Yeah. But, and that kind of gets my brain rolling as to what we can do with that meeting and what we can cover and everything.
Yeah.
And, that's a ball I can run with.
Yeah. I've got a book, and I will text you. I'll text you. I thought it was on my shelf. I don't have the actual book here though. I must have gave it to somebody. That's my problem. I give my books away. I will text you a link to probably the best book out there that deals with integrating the church, the local church, and the family, and putting them together. The name of the book is Think Orange, and it has to do with the idea of like the church is the light on the, the light on the hill, and the family is, and it's yellow, represents yellow. The heart is the home and represents the heart, and it's red. And if you put red and yellow together, you get orange. That's kind of where they come up with the name of it. But it's the idea that.
I've heard that book.
What's that?
I've heard of that book.
Okay.
I've
yes.
heard of it.
It's very good. Yeah. Yeah, I really like it. It's got some great ideas, and it's great ideas in there for teacher training to help your people kind of grab hold of the things that they need, you know. So Think Orange is a good one. All right, I'm back here real quick. I didn't want to mention a reference of a book without giving it to you. So here it is. Yeah, I've got several copies of this floating around. Just a real good book. I'm doing a review on it right now for upcoming podcasts that deal with kind of the three main chapters that are in there that I really like the best. And there's kind of one little thing in there I don't like as much, but or I didn't understand as well. But nonetheless, this is a great book, Think Orange, and there is a link in the notes here. If you would like to click on that, you can pick that up on our Amazon affiliate side of things, which helps us create flourishing churches. So we appreciate that. Also, it comes with, and I've recently been going through some of this as well, the Orange Leaders Handbook, and it really kind of gives you a way to kind of gauge all these different pieces of your ministry, kind of how well you're doing. So a little bit deeper, and it's more assessment based. If you like that kind of stuff, both of these are available in the links below the notes here. So let's just jump back. I want to get you that book, and then let's jump back and get things wrapped up here. Another thing you can do from the pulpit is, as you're giving teaching through some different things, is you can say, and for you parents, boom, here's an application. So you would be giving an application of, Christ is our advocate or whatever. You're teaching, some pretty heavy stuff or whatever to the adults, but then, you can say, now as a parent, here's a way that you can do that. And when you say as a parent, there's a certain amount of your crowd are just going to sit up straight and they're going to pay attention really good for a moment. And then you basically have taken your illustration and your application and you make it point more towards parenting. So it's just another way to give an illustration and to get everybody to pay attention a little bit more. And whatever the illustration happens to be, or the application of your message, you would just apply it towards the parent, So
That's good.
Our pastor had he preached out of Romans this last week and talked about the fellowship in the gospel and the idea that we have a common bond together in Christ and we fellowship and some of that. And, you could say, we need to fellowship and look how good it is for our, all of us to be together and make sure that you come to church because, the logs burn better when they're all together. And we all know the value of fellowship, but then you can say, but as a parent, remember that is important too, that you and your children need to do things together, not just always, it's not just eating, sleeping, taking kids to school, but you need to do something together. So take your kids to a park, do something special with your kids, because that will build you together and they will remember that. So basically you've just took an illustration of fellowship for the local church and you just kind of said, now as a parent, make sure you do that as well.
That could work both ways with the kids too. If you're making a point to the church that would kind of apply to the kids, you could apply it to them, to bring them back into the message while they're just sitting there half comatose during your sermon. Mm-hmm. I just wrote a note down here. Hey, kids, listen to this. This is how this applies to you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And I could use it, and also use it to build mom and dad up.
And that's a speaker's technique. And you probably have done it before. It's like, and this next point is especially for dads, and all of a sudden they all sit up and pay attention, so yeah, it's you can do that in a lot of different ways to help them pay attention. So yeah. All right. I hope you enjoyed that. The review on that real quick is, schedule it, prioritize it, agenda it, team it, and coordinate it. So if you wanted all those on one screen, there it is for you. We want to make sure that if you like this kind of training, this is helpful for you, that you subscribe either on your podcast catcher if you're listening to this, or if you're watching this on YouTube. If you hit subscribe, what it means is that you will get more of this. The algorithm kind of puts this out in front of you a little bit more, and you'll be able to reach young families better and easier and go further faster with just some of the things that we do. So we're here for you is the bottom line. If you would like this entire training agenda put out into kind of a nice little PDF form for you to print up and kind of change around and alter, we've made that available, and you'll need to actually get that downloaded. We can't like show it on the screen here very well. You'll need to download that as a PDF file. It's just real simple. You go to our main website, reachkeep.com, and then just hit the little slash there, and reachkeep.com/ and type in the word training agenda. One word, just training agenda all together, and it will just prompt you to enter your email, and it'll go poof, and it will pop up there on your screen or come to you in your mailbox, whichever you need, or probably actually it comes to both that way, so that you can copy it, give it out to other people, however you need it. So again, if this is helpful, the thumbs up is appropriate. We appreciate that very much. We also really appreciate if you sharing these things. And as again, I mentioned the other day, our YouTube numbers came in the other day. We have an amazing amount of sharing, and there's a little share button there. You can hit that and send it to Facebook. You can send it to LinkedIn, to Twitter, wherever you would like to send it. You can actually just copy it and paste the link to this video right into an email or text it to somebody, and they'll be able to watch it. So we're grateful for everybody that does that, and there's just been a lot of folks that have been doing that lately, and we're thankful for that. So I'm glad that we could help you with your Sunday school training. Hope you have some great Saturday training coming up soon. Like I say, nice 3-hour training package, couple times a year, and you really will be on top of things. It's the preparation for all of this that kind of helps you sort of hone in and be the best that you can be. But we are here for you. And I mentioned the Academy several times. If you have not ever checked out our Reach Keep Academy, it's just a real simple monthly kind of subscription thing that we connect with you on a regular basis, and actually help you through Zoom calls and phone calls to kind of create your own training program, whatever you need. We spend a lot of time. In fact, the Mark and Mike video is just part of that. And you can find that at reachkeep.com/academy, and you can find some special deals there, be able to join up, and we are here for you. That's what it's all about. So may God bless you. And again, take time to like and share and give this to your neighbors and whatever you need to do, and make sure that you create your own, very, very much your own flourishing local church. Make that your goal. So God bless, and we'll see you next time.